Listen to the backbeat of any rock song, the syncopation in hip-hop, the improvisation in jazz. That groove that makes you move without even thinking about it. Where did that come from? It wasn't invented in America or created in Europe. It wasn't born in a recording studio, it came from West Africa. It crossed the Atlantic in the most brutal migration in human history, survived enslavement designed to erase culture, and then exploded into the greatest musical revolution the world has ever seen. Blues, jazz, rock and roll, funk, soul, R&B, hip-hop, reggae, salsa, samba, Afrobeat, house music, techno. Nearly every popular genre you can name traces its rhythmic DNA directly back to West African traditions. This isn't just influence, this is the foundation. African rhythm didn't just shape global music, it created it. And understanding this will change how you hear everything. Back in the 16th and 17th centuries, West Africa was home to incredibly sophisticated musical traditions developed over millennia. Manding griots in Mali and Senegal played the kora, a 21-string bridge harp, performing historical epics that could last for hours, combining melody with intricate rhythmic patterns. Yoruba drumming ensembles in what is now Nigeria used talking drums that could literally mimic tonal languages, transmitting complex messages across distances. The Akan peoples in Ghana developed polyrhythmic traditions where multiple distinct rhythmic patterns played simultaneously. Each pattern was complete on its own, but together, they created complex, interlocking composite rhythms. This wasn't primitive music, this was mathematics, philosophy, spiritual practice, social organization, all encoded in rhythm. While Western music generally uses one rhythmic foundation at a time of 4/4 beat or 3/4, Old West African music layered multiple rhythmic cycles on top of each other. A drummer might play a pattern of 3 beats while another plays 4, and dancers move to a pattern of 5, all happening at once, all interlocking. This reflected a worldview where multiple truths can coexist, and complexity creates richness, not confusion. Another key element was call and response. A leader sings or plays a phrase, and the community responds, creating a dialogue through music. This wasn't just a performance technique, it was social structure. Music was a conversation, not a monologue, built on community participation. These elements, polyrhythm, call and response, improvisation, and music as a communal practice would survive the horrors of the Middle Passage and transform global music forever. Between the 16th and 19th centuries, around 12.5 million Africans were forcibly transported across the Atlantic. Enslavers tried to destroy their culture, separating people who spoke the same language and banning drums in many regions, but they couldn't destroy rhythm. Because rhythm doesn't require an instrument, it only requires the body. Hands clapping, feet stomping, the human voice. Music became an act of resistance, a tool for coded communication, and a means of spiritual survival. In the American South, enslaved people developed the ring shout. Dancers moved in a circle, shuffling in complex rhythmic patterns, while singers performed call and response. This was a West African circle dance adapted to a new, brutal context. The shuffle step cleverly avoided the accusation of dancing, which was often forbidden. The polyrhythmic clapping and foot patterns created the same interlocking cycles as traditional drumming. This practice directly influenced gospel, blues, and eventually, the driving rhythms of rock and roll. Work songs also used call and response. The leader's call would set the work rhythm, and the group's response would synchronize everyone's movements. Field hollers, sung by individuals working alone, used the melodic bends and blue notes that would become fundamental to the blues. These weren't European harmonic structures. They were African tonal practices adapted to new circumstances. From this synthesis, spirituals were born, combining African musical forms with Christian themes, creating something entirely new, the foundation for everything that followed. In the late 19th century, after emancipation, the blues emerged in the Mississippi Delta. Former slaves and their children synthesized African musical practices with their new social realities. The 12-bar blues structure became standard, but within that European-derived framework, everything else was African. The blue notes, those flatted thirds and sevenths that give the blues its emotional depth, come from African tonal systems where pitch is fluid, not fixed. The emphasis on rhythm and groove over pure melody, the call and response between voice and instrument, the improvisation within a structure. All of it came from African griot traditions. Then came jazz. In the cultural crossroads of early 20th century New Orleans, African Americans, Creoles, and Caribbean immigrants mixed their musical traditions. But the core elements of jazz remained African: improvisation, polyrhythm, and call and response. The syncopation that defines jazz, emphasizing the offbeats to create tension and release, is a West African rhythmic practice applied to Western instruments. The rhythm section, with bass and drums creating interlocking patterns while horns improvise, recreates the polyrhythmic ensembles of West Africa. In the 1950s, rock and roll emerged from blues and R&B. It was African rhythm, electrified and sold to a new audience. Chuck Berry, Little Richard, Fats Domino, they were playing blues and R&B. The backbeat, emphasizing beats 2 and 4, comes directly from African drumming patterns. Elvis Presley, the Beatles, they learned from black musicians, copying the rhythms, the vocal styles, the energy. The driving rhythm in every rock song is African. Then, in the 1970s, hip-hop emerged in the Bronx. DJs looped the most rhythmically intense sections of funk and soul, records the breakbeats. MCs developed a rhythmic vocal delivery over these beats. Hip-hop's foundational elements are profoundly African. The emphasis on rhythm, the call and response between the MC and the crowd, and the communal participation in ciphers and parties. Even sampling echoes how African music has always reused and reimagined traditional patterns. Hip-hop wasn't a break from tradition. It's the latest expression of this same African musical DNA, and this story isn't limited to North America. Samba in Brazil combines West African polyrhythms with Portuguese influences. Salsa in Cuba and Puerto Rico blends Spanish melodies with African rhythmic complexity. The clave pattern, fundamental to salsa, is a West African timeline pattern. By the mid-20th century, the circle began to close. African musicians like Fela Kuti encounter African American music and recognize their own traditions transformed. He created Afrobeat by combining traditional Yoruba rhythms with the funk and jazz he heard, reuniting rhythms that had traveled across the Atlantic and back. Today, contemporary African artists like Burna Boy and Wizkid are blending traditional rhythms with hip-hop and R&B, reclaiming and evolving their own rhythmic heritage. Even today's global pop, from K-pop to EDM, uses rhythmic approaches rooted in these African traditions. The emphasis on groove and rhythm in house music is directly descended from funk and disco, which came from R&B and soul, which came from the blues, which came from West Africa. Understanding this isn't just about music history, it's about recognizing cultural power. African musical traditions survived the most brutal attempt at cultural genocide in human history. They not only survived but went on to transform the oppressor's culture. Enslaved Africans, denied everything, created the most influential musical traditions on the planet. That's not just resilience, that's a cultural victory. So next time you hear a song, any popular song, listen for it, the emphasis on groove, the syncopation, the call and response, the polyrhythmic layering. Once you hear it, you can't unhear it, the African foundation becomes obvious. Every time you find yourself moving to a beat, you are experiencing the legacy of African musical traditions. The beat that makes the world dance didn't start in a recording studio. It started in West Africa, survived the Middle Passage, transformed in the Americas, and conquered the world. Not through force, but through the undeniable power of rhythm. It's a revolution that's still happening, in every song, everywhere. Listen for it, you'll never hear music the same way again. Thanks for watching. If this changed how you hear your favorite songs, share it. And if you want more deep dives like this, be sure to follow.